Sporting CP is once again being picked clean, a victim of their own success, and the latest example is their manager Ruben Amorim, most likely headed to Manchester United, and frankly, if it's not there, it's going to be somewhere else soon, because that's just what happens at Sporting. They develop a good manager, a good technical director, good players, and bigger clubs pick them off. And it's not just Sporting, it happens with the top teams in Portugal, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in any of the countries that can't offer a top-level league. And I don't love it, and I think there are some possible solutions if we're willing to think outside the box. Could a Super League be something that would help? Not the Super League you're thinking of, but a different Super League that we'd probably have to rename. That's what we're going to talk about today here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub. So I know I said the magic words, the Super League words, which have such a negative connotation, and rightly so. No one was more adamantly against the original Super League plan than I was. I hated it, and I'm so thrilled that it got just demolished in the court of public opinion to the point where it was maybe not given up on by certain clubs, but certainly, the minds were changed, thank goodness. So in no way would I ever suggest that as a solution, and Super League is probably not the name we should be using, but for lack of a better term, that's what we're going to go with today, because I do think some sort of combined league with some of these second-tier nations could solve a major problem here, and if we are open-minded to it, it could work out well for clubs like Sporting. Maybe they'd actually get to keep some of the players and the coaches that they are developing and should have a chance to hold on to. So that's what we're going to talk about today, but before we do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel. Get in that comment section. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. I know it's a little outside the box and there are some pitfalls, but I'd love to get your feedback on this. Keep an open mind. You can also leave some comments on Twitter at Pitchside Pub, and check out the website pitchsidepub.com. So the problem at hand is that clubs like Sporting, and they're the most recent example because they've had such tremendous success and because they are in the news for losing their manager only a few weeks after they were in the news for losing their technical director, Hugo Viana, to Manchester City, who he's planning on taking over there at the end of the season. And it's been, Ruben Amorim has been linked with a lot of clubs. He was close with the Liverpool job before some things got in the way. It was almost starting to be assumed that he might go to Manchester City if Pep were to leave, given that his own technical director is going there. And now with Manchester United firing Erik ten Hag, it looks like he's going to be headed there. And the problem is that this has become sort of a foregone conclusion that anybody good at Sporting, whether you're in the front office or you're in the technical area or you're on the pitch, if you are good, you are going to outgrow it and you are going to move on. And that's a real shame, but that is the situation that has become the norm for the best clubs in countries like Portugal and Belgium and the Netherlands, and those are the ones I'm most focused on because they are in that sort of 6, 7, 8 tier, right? You have the big five, England, Germany, Italy, Spain, and France has always been in that big five, but depending on your rating system, other countries have jumped them in the UEFA coefficient, for example, but generally speaking, those are considered the big five with France in there. Then you have that next tier of Portugal, Belgium, the Netherlands with the Eredivisie. A few others, probably another tier below that if you get into the Austrian league and some of the other leagues there, the other countries there. So those three are sort of that second tier, which is not a term I like, but you understand what I'm saying. And the best players and the best coaches in those leagues always end up leaving. Arne Slot, who went to Liverpool, left the Belgian league where he was having success because there are bigger and better things and more money to be made and more glory to be had. He wasn't going to win a Champions League with a Belgian team. That just wasn't going to happen, at least in our current setup. The run that Ajax made a few years ago to the Champions League semifinals was in fact an anomaly, but it was amazing. It was amazing to watch as a neutral, unless you were one of the clubs losing to them, but it was amazing to see. But then that entire club got dismantled. Matthias de Ligt went on, Frankie de Jong went on, Erik ten Hag went on. That club got completely dismantled because they couldn't afford to keep any of those players, and those players all wanted to go on to bigger clubs, bigger leagues, better challenges, more prestige, and of course, more money. So how do we fix this? Well, combining those countries, the leagues in those countries, could possibly work. Now, again, I called it a Super League. We'd need to name it something different because the inherent problem with the Super League was the closed system, and I hated that aspect of it more so than anything. If you had said, we're going to create a league above the top 5, and the winners can feed into that and the losers will get relegated back down to their top domestic league, much like what happened in England when the Premier League was created to sit atop the already existing English pyramid, there still would have been pushback, but it would have been, I believe it would have been more accepted because it would have been, in fact, an open system. And I still think there would have been pushback from, the concept of Manchester United not competing in the top English league because they've gone on to some sort of continental league. And that is the inherent problem here, because I'm going to suggest something similar in a second. But if we can get past that, it may be the only way for these second-tier clubs to compete with the big boys. The other inherent problem with the Super League was that, particularly for the Premier League teams, you're already at the top. What more do you want? What more do you want? The Premier League is the most difficult domestic league and year-long competition in the world. And so, why do you need a higher level of competition? You're already the higher level of competition. And of course, the answer was, because there's more money to be made. Right. And that's why it felt dirty and why everybody hated it. Yes, obviously money's always going to be a factor here, but this would be a competitive move as well. How do we create a situation so that a club like Sporting can keep Victor Gyorkas, who's going to be sold to somebody this offseason, if not this January, and it's almost a little surprising he wasn't last year, so that they can keep Ruben Amorim so he doesn't want to go on to bigger and better things because Sporting can offer him those bigger and better things. How do we keep, Sporting, their recent history, they have players all over the top 5 leagues, former players, I should say. Pedro Porro, and it's just so many. Manuel Ugarte, who went to PSG and is now at Manchester United. There are so many players who once were at Sporting and then went on to bigger, better things. How do we fix this? So what if there was a league with the best Portuguese, the best Belgian, and the best Dutch clubs? So you had Sporting and Benfica and Porto in a league with Ajax and with PSV and with Club Brugge and Genk and Anderlecht and whoever, the clubs that are the best by however that is ultimately determined. And that would create an incredible level of competition. One of the downsides of a league like Portugal is you've got Porto and Benfica and Sporting, and it's those three, and then it's a massive drop-off for everybody else. And occasionally somebody else, Braga or somebody else, lifts up and offers a challenge. But generally speaking, you've got the big clubs, and then it's everybody else. You could offer France's the same way. And if you want to drop them down into this category and add PSG and Marseille and Monaco and Lyon to this league, baby, you got a powerhouse. But I don't think they would do that. Although, with their inability to get a good TV contract, maybe they would consider it. Because that's really the kicker here, is how would a league like this make enough money to continue to funnel talent into the league and pay players like Pedro Porro, enough money so that he doesn't want to go to Tottenham. Or to pay Ruben Amorim enough so that he stays there. Or to offer him a chance to actually win a Champions League with Sporting. Because that's why he's going to leave. Because he can accomplish things at Manchester United, in theory, that he can't accomplish at Sporting, right? He has hit the ceiling at Sporting. He won the league last year. They're winning the league this year. It's all he can do. He can't do anything else. They're gonna do well. They're doing well in the Champions League, but he's not winning a Champions League title with Sporting. So he's going to go, his next move will be to a club where he can do that because he wants to test himself. Same with Arne Slot. He was having success, but he wasn't going to win a Champions League title with a Belgian team, and he coached for a couple of them. He had to go to Liverpool to have that chance, or certainly was going to have to go somewhere. So how do you get these clubs a chance to grow to the point where they can keep their talent and offer that to their players and their coaches? And combining them into one league and then getting a big TV contract would actually accomplish that. And I think that would have a massive European appeal to anybody who wants to watch games outside of their own country. So if you are English, you've obviously got your Premier League and you're going to watch that. But would you rather watch La Liga, where you've got Real Madrid beating up on Las Palmas? Or would you rather have, Club Brugge taking on Sporting twice a year? I'd rather have that. I'd much rather see that than Bayern Munich, destroying Hoffenheim, right? I'd much rather have this competition. Now, you'd have to have it be open, and you'd have to somehow make another league on top of the Eredivisie and the Belgian Pro League and La Liga Primeira in Portugal. You'd have to add another league on top of that, right? And the best clubs would be promoted up, and you'd have to take, the 4 best Portuguese clubs, the 4 best Dutch clubs, the 4 best Belgian clubs. Maybe there's another country in there, or maybe it's the 5 best in each ones. Again, we'd have to work out the exact details, but that's the general concept of a sort of continental Super League, for lack of a better term, for these second-tier clubs. And I think if you combined all of them into one league, right off the bat, that would be better than the French league. Right off the bat. You could argue that it would be better than La Liga, because La Liga is so top-heavy with Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid. That would be a deeper league for sure. They may not have the dynamic top-end clubs yet, although I would argue that a few of those are probably on par with Atletico Madrid right now. I think Sporting could give them a run for their money. But they could get there because of the money that would then come in. Imagine if Sporting could keep so many of its recent players, and the core that they could have built to dominate this league or compete in this league. And then you'd have spots from this feed into the Champions League. So it would be a massive, massive overhaul, and obviously none of this is ever going to happen, although there have been talks of a combined Dutch-Belgium league in the past, and that has never come to fruition. But because of the geographic proximity of those two countries, that one has actually been discussed in real life, although I still think it's probably a very long shot to ever happen. But imagine if you added Portugal to the mix. And Europe's not that big. You could handle the travel. This would not be a problem logistically. The problem would be tradition. And are the Portuguese people and our Sporting fans, let me know if you're watching this, Sporting fans, would you be okay not competing in a Portuguese-only league? You still have your domestic cup. The Portuguese domestic cup would still be intact. In fact, winning it could get you a bid in this league. I'd be fine with that. That'd be a unique twist. And winning the domestic league in the cup in the other countries would get you a bid so that it carries more weight. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this, but combining all of these second level countries into one league would make a dynamic league that is on par, if not better, than some of the big leagues in Europe. And I think it would allow these clubs to hold on to their talent, compete with them. There would be money for this because this would get TV contracts. It would get TV contracts here in the States. We would watch the heck out of this. I think there's a lot of possibilities here if people want to get creative and want to open their minds up. I hate seeing a club like Sporting or what happened to Ajax or any of these clubs when they do well and they do things right and they develop talent and they develop a good manager, and you're just waiting. You're just waiting for the day when they leave. And you know what's happening, and they're going to go to someplace like Manchester United or Man City, which is just as guilty of raiding these clubs as anybody. And it's depressing. I'd like to see Sporting be able to hold on to what they've built and continue to grow with it. But because of the quality of the leagues and the depth of the leagues in their country, there is a cap on the level of success that any player, coach, administrator, or the club as a whole can have. And that's unfortunate, and I think there are ways around it. But I would love to get your thoughts. Get down in that comment section. Let me know what you think about this idea. What would you change? What tweaks would need to be made? Do you just hate the concept in general? Get down in that in the comment section. Let me know what you think. You can also leave comments on Twitter at PitchsidePub. While you're doing all that, make sure you hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel and check out the website pitchsidepub.com. Thanks as always for joining us here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.